and me as a kuffar here.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's your brother Leafy was here. And a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with a few Christians on Brother Dean's stream. The first Christian came up and we decided to talk about a few contradictions in the Bible, specifically the one about the birth narrative of Jesus in Matthew and Luke contradicting. The second Christian came up and thought he could reconcile the two accounts in Matthew and Luke, but by the end of it, he realized that he couldn't do it and that he wasn't really educated enough on the topic. Now, with that being said, both guys were pretty respectful and it was a pretty productive conversation. So I want to give them props for that. And they're both welcome to come back on me and Brother Dean's lives at any time to further discuss these issues. Now, if you want access to any of my notes and sources, or you want to learn from me and study with me, then you can join my Discord server for $8 a month. The link to it will be in the description. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And with all that being said, let's jump straight into it.
But I don't see how that could not be mixed in with the biographical accounts. You have to build the biographical accounts around something, and what they're building it around is what he's saying.
Yeah, but Ruby, the issue is that the biographical accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John contradict each other and are changed for theological reasons.
Yeah, like in
and I can give you countless examples of that.
as well. Yeah.
Not only in John, John does it the
them.
most clearly, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke also do the same. So each author has his own theology in mind that is separate from the other authors, and they change details about his biography to suit their theological inclinations. And there's many examples of this. So because of that, we can't really trust that biographical information. Like a simple example is just the birth narrative. Matthew and Luke contradict each other very explicitly. And this is noted by many scholars.
Are you referring to one of them, like the census and stuff, where you had to go back?
Not even the census. The census is just a historical error, but I'm talking about specifically how was Jesus born and what was the account. Because Matthew says he fled to Egypt to fulfill a prophecy. Right? Luke doesn't say that. Right? Luke says that there was a census. And there's no way he could have both gone to Egypt and not done that if he was supposed to be there 40 days after in Luke. So Ray Edmund Brown, Metzger, F.F. Bruce, Wallace, they all say this is a clear discrepancy because both of them are weaving different parts of the narrative. They both know that Jesus was born in Bethlehem and that he's from Nazareth, but they have different methods of getting him there that end up contradicting each other.
I don't think there is a contradiction in the stories. Like Luke omits Egypt, but it doesn't contradict what Matthew says.
No, it literally does contradict with what Matthew says. I'll just read to you what Ray Edmund Brown says. Just give me a sec. I'll pull it up right now.
A few moments later.
Okay. So this is The Birth of the Messiah by Ray Edmund Brown, who's one of the most prolific New Testament scholars. He himself is Catholic, I believe. And this is what he says about the two birth narratives. He says, this leads us to the observation that the two narratives are not only different, they are contrary to each other in a number of details. According to Luke chapter 1, verse 26, and chapter 2, verse 39, Mary lives in Nazareth. And so the census of Augustus is invoked to explain how the child was born in Bethlehem, away from home. In Matthew, there is no hint of coming to Bethlehem, for Joseph and Mary are in a house at Bethlehem, where seemingly Jesus was born. The only journey that Matthew has to explain is why the family went to Nazareth when they came from Egypt, instead of returning to their native home in Bethlehem. Second difficulty is that Luke tells us that the family returned peaceably to Nazareth after the birth at Bethlehem. This is irreconcilable with Matthew's implication in chapter 2, verse 16, that the child was almost 2 years old when the family fled from Bethlehem to Egypt, and even older when the family came back from Egypt and moved to Nazareth. Of the options mentioned before, we made the detailed comparison of the two narratives. One must be ruled out, i.e. that both accounts are completely historical, right? So then he goes on to explain the different reasons for why they would have these discrepancies and how they're trying to tie it into different prophecies. But the conclusion that he comes to is that both accounts cannot be historical. Clearly, they contradict each other. He calls both of them irreconcilable.
I agree. Oh, I agree. In that sense, yes, they can't both be completely historically accurate. I agree.
Okay, cool. So if you can see that there's a contradiction in the New Testament accounts, then you understand why we do a general confirmation of it. We don't affirm it absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. I would also say it's like, yeah, it's a general confirmation, but not really.
I hate to use the term that I forget who it was, maybe testify yesterday. He said like it's like a minority confirmation, and in that sense, I would agree because it doesn't really agree with the spirit of the message. It just kind of, I think it comes and it offers something that's straightforward, and yeah, I think that's appealing to a lot of people is like the straightforwardness, even if it may not be
Historically accurate. I mean,
Okay.
there's also other problems, such as like the crucifixion of Jesus. Like, if it was only
Yeah,
appeared that
there's
he was
other accounts.
crucified.
Yeah, there's no issue with that. But so the point that you're conceding here is that both accounts are not historical. So then
Yeah,
the question I want to
100%.
ask you, then the question I want to ask you, if the Gospels are getting things wrong historically, why would you put your salvation in them when you know that they may have historical errors and that the authors are changing narratives for the theological motives?
Because the central message is not entirely like, it's not entirely based around the historical accuracy, although there's a lot of historical accuracy within the Bible. I couldn't tell you which of these two is the historical narrative, but I also don't think it's important to the main message.
Yeah, but what if I show you? What if I show you errors or changes that do affect the general message? Like, for example, there's a variation in Luke where, depending on which variant you take, Luke either has the doctrine of atonement or he doesn't. And so that changes the theme of the Gospel of Luke, because if there is no atonement, if there is no vicarious atonement in Luke, then that is more in line with the earlier Christians. But if there is a doctrine of atonement in Luke, then that reflects more of a Pauline understanding of the death and resurrection of Christ. And that is a central theme of the good news. So there are like changes that affect central dogma. They're not. Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, that's fine. Omen talks about it. So, brother, you can close this one, and I'll find the thing in Luke. There's no issue.
Round 2, fight.
Hey, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, nothing much, man. Are you Christian?
Yeah, I'm Orthodox.
Nice, dude. Nice.
What
nice.
kind of Orthodox?
I'm Oriental, but I accept Chalcedon. I accept the Christology of Chalcedon.
You
you
accept Chalcedon?
Yeah,
No problem.
Right. So, critical. Was there anything you wanted to bring?
Yeah, I was listening to the conversation you were having right now with this guy around the start. Wanted to discuss specifically the contradiction that you brought up in Matthew and Luke, with the contradictory statements of the circuit or the presentation at the temple and then off to Egypt. And is it possible to share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no,
so
yeah,
you're
no
trying to
problem.
reconcile it?
Yeah, I quickly prepared a slideshow while you were continuing, and then so if I could just share that in.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sure. So do you believe that? Do you believe that Matthew's account is correct? Yeah, no problem. You can share your screen. Just before you do you believe that Matthew's account is correct when he says that they went to Egypt?
I believe that both can be harmonized. I'm going to propose something to you, then you can object to it.
Yeah, I have no problem sharing a slideshow, but just answer the question first. Do you believe Matthew is correct when he says that they went to Egypt?
Yeah, he is correct.
Okay, he does believe that. All right, cool. And then when Luke says that they appeared in Bethlehem 40 days later, you believe that's also historical?
Yeah, I'm about to harmonize that. Having an issue. Oh, there we go. Works.
No problem.
Let me
Yeah, bro, you can
see this.
Sure.
Yep. There you go. Yep. Just loading.
Give it a second. Perfect. So we can start from what I have down there is not my actual argument. I just want to point that out as well. If we can look in the Greek. So the word that's used is child, not a baby, and so that's one. But to reconcile these two, and I took a screenshot of the book that you were talking about. So we can start from here. So Matthew would tell us that after Christ was born, an angel appears to Joseph, right, in a dream, and he's telling him to flee to Egypt to escape Herod's wrath. And so that timing is not immediate after Christ's birth. The Magi visit or the angel is that's visiting in Matthew 2.
So where does the gospel say that?
Matthew 2, 1 to 12.
Yeah, where does it say it's not immediate?
Could you repeat that? I can't hear you.
I said, where does it say that it's not immediate? You're reading that in.
Right. No. I'm proposing that. I'm going to show you why that's not going to be immediate. I'm just proposing that right now.
But yeah, okay, but you have to. Okay, but here, brother, you have to be very actually in the text and what you're adding onto the text. The text doesn't say that.
Yeah. Here, can you see the first one? The word that's used is child, not
Yeah,
baby,
I can see.
That's not immediate, which suggests
I have no issue with that.
Yeah. So
That doesn't follow, bro. That's just a non sequitur.
How is that a non sequitur?
Because it doesn't follow that just because it says child that it's not immediate.
Is there a difference between the word child and baby?
Of course, there's a difference between the word child and baby.
So would that difference have a certain amount of time? To go from a baby to a child, there would need to be a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah, of course, you need to grow up. Yeah, but how does that support your point?
That's what I'm proposing.
Yeah, but that doesn't help you. That doesn't help. Because Mathew is saying that they went to Egypt. Do you believe it's possible to go to Egypt and back in 40 days?
No, it's not 40 days. That's what I'm about to continue on. So the presentations at the temple is after 40. We know that by Leviticus 12. And that timing that I'm proposing is not.
Okay, so in Matthew 2:16, the child is almost 2 years old when the family fled from Bethlehem to Egypt. And when the family came back from Egypt and moved to Nazareth. Do you accept that?
Yeah. Family returns to Nazareth. Here's the thing. Here's the timeline that I'm presenting. Can you show me where from this what you disagree with? So
okay, yeah, fine. So the birth. That's fine, bro. So do you believe there was a worldwide census?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so what's the evidence for that outside the Gospel of Luke?
Outside the Gospel of Luke, there. Actually, I don't know about that. You want evidence outside?
The answer is there isn't. Yeah, so the answer is there isn't. There isn't we have all the other censuses, we have them all. We have the ones under all the other kings, all the other rulers, and there isn't the one under Caesar Augustus, which Luke describes, because it doesn't exist. Luke made this up. There is no Caesar Augustus worldwide census in Rome.
Wait, why would Luke make that up, Leafy?
Yeah, so Luke made that up as a narrative plot device to get Joseph to get into Bethlehem. Because he said, do you know what I mean? Because otherwise, why did he go to Bethlehem? Luke knows that Jesus is born in Bethlehem, but he's from Nazareth. But he doesn't know how Jesus got to Bethlehem and how he came from Nazareth. And neither does Matthew. So they both make up their own versions of the story in order to get to the same conclusion. But the way they make it up is different. So the issue is here critical, is that you haven't actually studied the historical sources. If you did, you would know that even the most conservative scholars say...
Right, sorry, I think you cut out. What were you going to say, Leafy?
Yeah, sorry, I cut out. So I said you haven't studied the historical sources, because if you did, you would know that Luke's census is not historically attested anywhere outside the Gospel of Luke. Let me ask you a question. Why wouldn't Matthew mention this worldwide census if it really happened? And why wouldn't any other Roman source or Greco-Roman source mention this census? Why wouldn't Josephus mention it, for example?
So before we get to the historical part, though, could you just tell me if there's anything wrong with this sequence? That's what I'm trying
I'll get there. Yeah, that's fine. I'll get to the sequence, but if you answer my question first, we'll get there.
Right. I don't know about any Roman records outside of the Gospels that talks about this. I do know, and I do want to ask you. You know when Herod died, right? So Herod died in 4 BC.
There's a contradiction on the death of Herod, so that's a separate topic, though. You didn't answer my question. So you said you don't know. Yeah, the proposed death of Herod. There's a contradiction in chronology there about when Jesus was even born, and I think you're aware of that. But that's not the topic that I want to discuss. The topic that I'm trying to explain to you is that according to Luke, there's a worldwide census, and when I show you that there's a strong argument from silence here, that Matthew doesn't mention it, Mark doesn't mention it, Q doesn't mention it, Josephus doesn't mention it, Tacitus doesn't mention it, no other contemporary source mentions it, when we have other contemporaries that mention other censuses. So it's kind of spectacular that no one else mentions it except Luke. And he does it specifically for the reason that I described to you, which is a plot device. Don't you find that suspicious?
Yeah, I'm sure there's evidence from Josephus and certain Roman records.
There isn't. Okay, can you bring it? Can you bring it?
Yeah. Actually, I remember. Wait, sorry, just quickly. I remember Testify talking on this with someone on Inspiring Philosophy's channel and testify. He says himself that Josephus makes a mistake here. I remember that clearly on this topic. And he says that, and then the person pressed him on it, was like, okay, if you say Josephus made a mistake here, right, then how are you going to appeal to Josephus later for like the crucifixion? So I'm pretty sure like you're like your own big apologist, bro, that they admit to this.
Not only that, your own scholars admit to that. So there's no issue with saying that Luke makes a historical error or that he creates a historical error for the sake of driving plot. But you have to be honest about what it is. So if you say, look, it seems like a historical error, I need to look at it, and I can't find any sources right now, but I'm happy to come back later. That's a reasonable answer, bro.
Yeah. I'd have to look into and the Josephus part. I don't hold testify as like a really good apologist or anything like that.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
So,
bro, what do you mean? He's the best apologist.
I think that's something you can agree on. By the way, there are a lot of flaws in testify's theology that I've seen.
Bro, I don't know, man. I think testify is better than that random church father Theophilus. That random weird church father. That random weird church father.
Nah, bro. Nah, critical. Look, I'll tell you a secret, bro. When I was refuting testify, his arguments were so high tier, bro. Like I had to spend years researching my videos, like to refute him. Like even last thing, like I'm not joking, man. Anyway, so I'm glad. So you can see the point. So let's get back to the issue. You can see the point about the census. You don't know of any historical attestation, and you agree with me that it seems most likely that he made it up.
Right. No. I'm not gonna. I would still need to look into.
Yeah, you need to look into it. But as far as what I've told you, what I'm saying looks correct, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool. So let's. No problem. That's fine. All right, so now we'll get to the chronology bit that you want to discuss. So you said at the beginning is the birth in Bethlehem. Circumcision is 8 days, as according to the Gospel of Luke. It's presented in the temple. And then he returns to Bethlehem, where Matthew picks up, supposedly. He visits the Magi. He's flying to Egypt. And then he returns to Nazareth. Right. Now, the issue here is that you're kind of patchworking the two narratives and trying to mishmash them, but you're not actually taking into consideration what each author says. I'll give you an example. When you say return to Bethlehem, Matthew picks up here, what's the indication from the text that Matthew picks up here?
The visit of the angel. That's where Matthew's going to pick up. After they return to Bethlehem, that's where...
Right, sure. But according to the Gospel of Matthew, there's a star, right? There's a star hovering over a house.
There's a what? There's a star?
The King of the Jews is going to be born, according to the Gospel of Matthew, right?
Yeah.
Right. And Harold hears of this news that the King of the Jews is going to be born. And there's a star that the old wise men follow to see where the King of the Jews is going to be born. You're familiar?
Yeah.
Right. So is this before or after Bethlehem?
That's a good question, actually. So if it was before that, then
if it was before, then that means that your narrative here is incorrect because it should be earlier up, right? And if it's after, then that's incongruent with what you're saying here as well. So either way, your chronology is not making sense with what Matthew's actually saying. Clearly, it's before.
No, that makes sense. Actually.
Does that make sense? So I could do the same thing for the other ones, but I can just save you time, I think. So here, critical, you seem like a sincere guy, and I respect your effort to try and reconcile these things. But I'll give you a bit of, because I've been doing this for a long time, bro. And trust me, like I have no ill will towards you or anything like that. And I respect someone who wants to defend their religion. And I also respect someone who just says, I don't know, I need to look into it more. That's something that's
I really respect someone that says testifies bad apologist.
Yeah, that too. I have no issue with that. But what I would advise you to do, but what I would advise you to do, critical, is to see the book that I put up before on screen, The Birth of the Messiah by Raymond Brown. He goes actually through this in detail, and he explains why the two positions are irreconcilable, and he goes through the motivations for why each author is saying what they're saying. So it's not just Edmund Brown. I'm just citing him because he's a Catholic and he's a prolific writer and people respect him. But pretty much every other critical historian says the same thing. So the attempts to try and reconcile these two, like he says, it's irreconcilable. And he's not saying that because, he's Christian. He wants there to be a reconciliation. But he's doing that because he's genuinely looking at the text properly. He's looking at the sources, and he's coming to the conclusion that there is an actual historical error here. So I would say the same thing to you. I'll say, look, go through his arguments. Are you Catholic? You said you were Orthodox, Oriental, right?
I'm is that the book that you're talking about, the one that you showed with the other guy?
Yeah, the birth of the Messiah. Yeah.
Could I quickly respond to that as well? I had a few points. You could correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I have my screen up to that thing, so if you could steam that,
Yep.
control it. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So from what I could read there, there's three things that I'd like to answer from that. I quickly screenshotted that. So the first part is the two narratives are contrary to each other. That's I guess that I was trying to refute that from the slides before this, and so you kind of showed why that wouldn't work as well. So we could just skip that point. And let's just go to the second one where it says extraordinary events would leave Jewish war room evidence. So would you say that this also wouldn't hold because many of those records are lost? So like Herod's brutality was so frequent that this incident wouldn't even be uniquely recorded. Is that something?
Yeah,
that
I mean,
reconcile?
not really. We have other records of Harold that portray him as much more violent than he is portrayed in the Gospels. He is portrayed a bit timid, but elsewhere he's portrayed a bit like even more extremely violent. So the type of reconciliation here is kind of what you would expect from a natural embellishment due to an oral tradition circulating. Because you have to remember who wrote Matthew and who wrote Luke. Do you know who wrote Matthew and who wrote Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah, who wrote Matthew and who wrote Luke, according to your understanding?
I would say Matthew and Luke. You would tell me that.
Okay, sure. No,
you would just test it to them afterwards.
no. So I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to read from the same book. So I'll just send Brother Dean the pages, and he can put it up as well. Just give me 1 second while I get you the reference.
Leafy, Leafy, like I said before, like because we stayed up last night, I don't want to stay
Yeah,
on
I
for
know.
much longer.
I'll make this the last point, and then we can head out. So just share my screen. What I sent you now.
Yeah, no problem.
And by the way, the stories of the Magi and the Star, I have no issue granting that because I have no issue granting miracles. So that's not a problem for me.
And if my thing cuts out at any moment, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm having issues with the internet.
Yeah, you're good, bro.
So you want me
Brother
to
Dean's,
bring it up here, like this one?
yeah, the second one. Yeah, the second one.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, this is from the same book, just a little bit later on. Do you want to read the parts that are highlighted? Yeah.
You want me? Yeah, you can read it quick.
Yeah, you can read it quick. Go ahead.
Most scholars today maintain that the gospel was written in Syria by an unknown Greek-speaking Jewish Christian living in the 80s, in a mixed community with converts of both Jewish and Gentile descent. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and then to the next page as well, Brother Dean.
There would be nearly unanimous agreement in scientific circles today that the evangelist is unknown, although we continue the custom of referring to him as Matthew, his dependence upon Mark, upon Q, a body of Jesus' sayings in Greek, known also to Luke, indicates that he was not an eyewitness of the ministry of Jesus, presumably an eyewitness. With his own memories, would not draw so totally upon second-hand collections. The fact that he improves upon Mark and Greek, and that no major portion of his work shows signs of being a direct translation from Semitic suggests that we should think of the evangelist as a Greek-speaking Christian, yet at least some of his formula citations of scripture, the evangelist seems to have control of Hebrew, and so many scholars add the detail that he was a Greek-speaking Jewish Christian. His respect for the details of the law and for the authority of scribes and Pharisees, combined with the fierce hostility towards scribes and Pharisees who opposed Jesus, would be I can't read that word. Is it just for me, or you could zoom in? Explicable. Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Explicable.
Yeah, and then also just Luke as well.
Do you want me to show anything else?
No, it was just these sections. That's pretty much it. Just the part on Luke as well, and that's it.
Okay, just this one, yeah?
Yeah, the part on Luke where he also says he's anonymous. So if you could read that as well, critical. Probably just the beginning paragraph is enough.
Huh?
I'll just read it quickly. Most scholars today would maintain that Luke's gospel was written in a church of the Gentile mission in the 70s or 80s. As with my general statements about Matthew's gospel, I recommend to the reader a standard, is that meant to say introduction? Introductions for detailed arguments, footnote 1, etc. And explain here only the elementary reasoning behind this position so that the reader may appreciate the Lucan community situation as it affects the infancy narrative. The Greek of Luke is the best of the four Gospels, and it is likely that Greek was the evangelist's native tongue. Indeed, he is so at home in it that he seems to be able to adapt his style to different circumstances and sources. The Gospel is noticeably lacking in Hebrew words, local Palestinian color, and direct Old Testament citations. In this, it is in marked contrast to Matthew, and so many scholars judge Luke's audience to be predominantly Gentile Christian, roughly contemporary with, but quite different in membership from Matthew's mixed community of Jewish and Gentile Christians. The emphasis placed on Paul in the second half of Acts would be explicable if Luke was writing for a Gentile church that was an outgrowth of the Pauline missionary effort. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much enough. So, critical here. The same scholar, the same reference, just later down in the book, he says that the authors of Matthew and Luke are not eyewitnesses. They're, in fact, anonymous Greek-speaking Christians writing decades after the fact, changing material for their own theological purposes that in some ways end up contradicting each other. And I give you the examples of the birth narratives. Now, being who you are, and I assume you want to defend your faith, I would suggest for you to look up the scholar, read Ray Edmund Brown's works. He gives additional arguments and he supplements them, and he explains why he reaches these conclusions. He explains his method. He goes in very rigorous detail. So I would suggest you to do that. And then, brother, after that, you can come back on and you can also, if you have any questions or whatever, we're happy to answer you. But because me and Dean last night, we stayed up a long time, so we don't want to extend the live.
Sounds good, bro. Sounds good. And maybe next time, if we could discuss more about your issues with Islam as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have some for you. If we could talk about that, that'd be great.
Sounds good. All right, man. Take care.
Sounds good, man.
God bless both.
Take care, man.
Yeah, man, that dude's probably the best guest we've had since we started this, bro. No, I really appreciate the fact that he trashed on Testify.
What he's doing? Bully. Why you bully me?
Maybe I'm not going to like press you hard on that right now because I have to look into it to better understand.